Hello and welcome in So GPS. Today our topic is the similarity, the overlap, the relationship between narcissistic abuse and chronic pain. My name is Eva and I'm very happy to see you on my channel. I hope that you are a regular guest, and if you're not, I would love to invite you to subscribe to my channel. I talk here a lot about healing from narcissistic abuse, and now I'm also going to start to talk a little bit more about nervous system regulation and healing from chronic pain, which is something that very often I've noticed accompanies the people who have experienced narcissistic abuse and other forms of abuse as well. The two seem to be related. They seem to overlap, and what it really comes down to is personality type, it turns out. Of course, there will be exceptions. Not everyone who experienced narcissistic abuse is going to experience chronic pain, and not everyone who has chronic pain is going to be someone who has experienced narcissistic abuse. Although the jury is still out, we're still learning, we're still studying. There's more and more research coming out every day, and I'm eager to get my hands on it when it does, and I want to be here to tell you all about it. But from my own experience, and I have experienced chronic pain, about 4 years of it, in fact, although I've also had some earlier episodes that I didn't connect as chronic pain, which later turns out it was exactly that. So this is a topic that's very, very close to my heart, and I'm also someone who experienced narcissistic abuse and who talks about this on this channel. So what seems to be the common link is personality. So the kind of personality that does tend to, you could say, attract or be attracted by narcissists is a person who has high sensitivity, person who tends to be perfectionistic, who loves to people please, who loves to be a do-gooder, who has a tendency for low boundaries, low conflict, and tends to be over-responsible. So this is just sort of like, creating this kind of personality. I'm certainly that personality. I'm still recovering. I'm still learning all the time how to set better boundaries. I've gotten much better at it. How to be more self-assertive, and also how to, and this is where this journey has taken me, deep inside myself, resolve the inner conflicts. Which, if you are a do-gooder and if you are someone who's a people pleaser, you are likely also a casualty of an inner conflict that you may not even be aware of. And to use the model of what Freud talked about, which is that we're made out of these three parts. Of course, it's way more nuanced than that, but it boils down to three parts of the id, the ego, and the superego. Or actually, we should put the ego in the middle because it mediates between the superego and the id. There's a conflict between the id and the superego, especially for people who are people pleasers, because what is the id? The id is the one that is the part of us that seeks self-gratification. It's rather selfish and pleasure-seeking. We all have that part in us. But in people who are people pleasers, that part tends to be kind of repressed. And on the other side, the superego, which is sort of the voice of the society, the voice of the father, the internalized critic that tells us that what we're doing is wrong and that we should do more of this and we shouldn't hurt people and we shouldn't show others what we really feel. We should be careful about how we carry ourselves through the world. All these things, this is the repressing factor to the id, and the id will get pissed, and it will feel repressed, and it will feel squashed, and eventually a time will come where all these things will want to bubble up to the surface, right? And that's where usually we have a healing crisis, whether it's a chronic pain or digestive issues, or whether it's intense bouts of anxiety or depression. These things are sort of the symptom of the inner conflict. And also I want to say that this inner conflict tends to not be so much acute, that it just happens once and it's this big bang, right? And we process it, we go through it, maybe a relatively short period of a crisis in our life, and then it gets resolved. Rather, it's something that's always simmering in the background. And if you are someone who has a history of abuse in your childhood, and it doesn't even need to be intense abuse, it can be enough where, for example, in my case, it was I would witness my parents being in a lot of conflict with each other. That would hurt me a lot. I did feel safe with my mom. I didn't feel as safe with my dad, so I didn't really have that contact with him. And then oftentimes when they would, argue, which was a lot, I would feel threatened. My safety felt threatened. So my nervous system was dysregulated from early on. To add to that, my mother has an anxiety-prone nervous system, and her mother had the same thing. And my older generation, that comes from Poland, was actively participating in war or casualties of war, First World War, then Second World War, and that, it turns out, also stores in the nervous system and then gets passed on for 6 generations to the children. So I also got that stored in my nervous system. So that, coupled with narcissistic abuse later in life and stresses in life, and my body just couldn't handle it. So you may relate to that, or you may have your own unique story. We're all unique. We all have our own, stories that we carry. But here's the thing, and here's the reason why I wanted to make this video, is that if you have this, if you've been through a lot, and if you're now suffering from symptoms, know that this is not a sentence. You can learn to re-regulate your nervous system, and you can eliminate all these symptoms, and you can feel better than ever, which is basically what this knowledge is all about, and why I want to share it, because it is incredible. The groundbreaking pain doctors, which are mostly in the United States and the Western world, so you do have access to them. You do have access to doctors like Dr. Schubiner. You do have access to coaches like Dan Buglia from Pain For You, a great channel. I was just on it. I will link the video that I was in where I tell my story down below this video. Steve Ozanich, who wrote a great book, The Great Pain Deception. Dr. Levine, who wrote about trauma extensively. These people are producing material. It's out there and you have access to it, and I encourage you to dive in, because what they have discovered is that chronic pain does not originate in tissue, in a sense that it's not physiological damage. There's a correlation, I'm going to talk about in a minute, between that. But if it's chronic, which means if it goes for longer than 3 months, and especially if the pain moves, which was the case with me and a lot of the people who have suffered from chronic pain, that the symptoms change. They can go from a digestive system to your headache, to your head, causing headaches, to causing arm pain or pelvic pain or fibromyalgia or chronic tiredness, chronic fatigue, ME, and other symptoms. It is not, it turns out, physiological. It is psychological. It's psychosomatic. It doesn't mean that you're imagining it, that it's some kind of a figment of your thoughts, that it's some phantasmagoric fantasy. It means that it's extremely real, but it's not caused by physiological damage. Like if you were to cut your hand, or if you were to, sprain your ankle, those pains tend to be persistent, consistent. They go through an acute stage, and then they wane down with the help of medication, with the help of, surgical procedure if need be. They tend to go down. Chronic pain behaves differently. One day it hurts, another day it doesn't. One day it's it's in a small area, another day it flares up. In my case, it was like one side of the head, another day it was the other side of the head. I was like, what is going on? So it is caused by emotions. It is caused by thoughts, which they go hand in hand, causing a loop oftentimes. Thought will cause a feeling will reinforce the thought, and so on and so forth. And we get in that bit of a thought-emotion catch-22 that can be kind of hard to come out of, but it's possible. But again, that doesn't mean that it's imagined. The pain is intense. It's real. The symptoms are real. They're debilitating. I remember having a foggy eye. Some people have issues with hearing. They were not imagining these things. But unfortunately, society doesn't understand, and a lot of doctors don't understand the real cause of chronic pain. And so they can look at us, especially when they're examining us, like everything's fine with you. I've had all the tests done. I've had scans done. I had all the blood taken out. I've had, a C-reactive protein. I had my liver tested. I had everything tested. They told me, you are super healthy. We don't understand. And here I am feeling like I'm about to, pass out and fall apart. So it can feel very invalidating. But again, the cause is in the brain. The cause is in the nervous system. It's not psychological. So in the past 4 years that I've had this, I have done a massive search as to what this is and what it's caused by. And in the last 2 years specifically, I have dived into the solutions. I finally found the right doctors to talk to and to listen to, the right books to read, and all the while still struggling with a lot of the symptoms, which prevented me from putting all this information out there as I was learning it. And I'm still having to pace myself because I'm the personality type where I want to just share everything right now because I feel like people are out there and need it. But I also need to take care of myself, and my nervous system, while way more regulated now than it used to be, is still sensitive to stress. So I got to take my time. So in this video, specifically, I want to tell you what's helped me. We have a sip of water, which is also really important. When you feel thirsty, drink water. When you're hungry, eat food. When you need to go to the bathroom, go to the bathroom. The nervous system gets regulated that way. We start from the basics up. So what's helped me the most? 2 things. Number 1 is feeling my emotions, hearing my thoughts, allowing my body to finally release the stored stress, whether it's emotional stress, whether it's mental stress, and boy, did I ever accumulate a lot of it. I accumulated it, of course, through narcissistic abuse, which if you're a regular on my channel, you know my story. I've recorded hundreds of videos, including during the time when I was really struggling. And you could see my progression. I kind of did it partly because I wanted to show other people that it's possible to come out of it. But even after I sorted out a lot of the stuff that dealt with the narcissistic abuse, I was then hit with chronic stress. It turns out that a lot of it was because I didn't allow myself, and I also didn't have the tools to properly process my emotions from the past. The pain that we carried from this abuse, this mental confusion, all of that chaos, right, that happened. Unfortunately, this will take a toll on our nervous system, take a toll on our bodies. Now imagine like always being in panic, always being in a state of alarm, even though you may already be in safety. So safety is really it's the goal. That's our North Star. We want to get to a place where we feel finally safe in our bodies and safe in our environment. And sometimes we need to come out of the unsafe environment and finally to be safe before the real healing takes place. You hear that probably a lot if you're listening to videos on healing the body after narcissistic abuse. Although it's not always a prerequisite, it turns out. Sometimes it's enough to understand and to know what is causing your distress, what is causing your symptoms, for the symptoms to go away. Because somehow the way the brain works is that once the subconscious mind, and that usually takes some repetition, gets the message that even though you may still have toxic people around you, and the truth is we can never be fully free of them because they're everywhere, but you know that it is caused by stress, it is caused by emotional distress, by thoughts that may be self-sabotaging, by thoughts that may be sending your brain the message that you are in danger. Once your subconscious mind gets it, the brain lets go. Because you can kind of compare it to the brain sort of squeezing from the inside. It squeezes. It's like the blood vessels get a little bit more narrow, like everything just sort of tightens up. And that tension can go anywhere. It can go into the digestive system. It can go into the neck, like it was in my case, that gave me migraines. It can go into my arm, which it did too. It can go anywhere. Once that thing takes hold, sometimes it's enough for the mind, for the subconscious mind, to get the fact that that's what's causing it, that there's nothing wrong with you, and then it relaxes. And sometimes that little bit of relaxation is enough for a lot of the tension to leave and for the symptoms to start to go away. But sometimes, as it was in my case, it wasn't that simple. I needed a much longer journey and much more tools in my toolbox, because I had days when that was enough, when knowledge was enough, and I had the days when I needed to do some exercise and I needed to shake up my routine, and sometimes I needed yet something different. I needed to be close with a friend, or I needed to hug someone, or I needed some social time. We all have different locks to different keys, and we got to find what works for us. So the first thing is, though, to learn to feel your feelings and express them. That doesn't mean that you need to do it at somebody. If somebody pisses you off, doesn't need to mean that you just you rage at them. Plus, these kinds of personalities don't have a tendency to do that anyway. But don't think that that's what you have to do. All you have to do is get to a safe space and acknowledge these emotions to yourself and really feel how they manifest in your body and name them. That's really helpful too, is just tell yourself, I'm really angry right now. I'm feeling really sad. And let that emotion express itself inside you and pass, because they all pass. They're waves. And a lot of the times, people who have dysregulated nervous systems, what happens is we know easily how to spike up, but we don't know how to calm back down. So you're teaching your body to calm back down. You're giving yourself the space and the time to do that. And the second thing that's really important while you're feeling these emotions or hearing the thoughts that may be causing these emotions is to break through with messages of safety, consistent messages of safety. I'm okay, I'm healthy, I'm safe, there's nothing wrong with me, this is just my nervous system freaking out, I'm going to be fine, I'm going to heal from this. And you will. You will. Thousands of people have healed themselves from this, and you will too. But you may have a different path than I did, probably will, because nervous system is a complicated thing. Or, you may have a spontaneous healing, which that's my biggest wish for you, because so to cut this process as much as possible. A lot of people you may know of have suffered for many, many years before they got healing, but we need to remember that this doesn't need to be your path, because now we have access to way more information. Now we have YouTube, now we have books, there's more and more research coming out about what this is, and all of this can speed up our recovery. So the two things, again, that are key to recovering from chronic pain, chronic symptoms, is number one, feel your emotions so you can release some of that tension, that emotional tension. And the second thing is tell yourself that you're fine, tell yourself that you're safe as often as you can. That's sort of the crux of the healing, because one part releases and another part soothes. And this is what we need for the nervous system to finally begin to calm down and regulate. Now, there's of course way more nuance to this, and I want to give you a little bit more. So I'm going to share with you here 6 things specifically that were, to me, again, you may need a different combination, but specifically to me, that helped me heal. Number one is I was always very health oriented. I was very, I like to have a clean diet. I like to make sure that I was getting all the supplements. I've experimented with the keto diet. I experimented with the vegan diet. I've done it all. And each one had maybe a little bit of a different effect on me. But once the pain started, I immediately thought, oh my God, I'm toxic. There's something toxic. I must have eaten something. I must have been too much of this or too much of that or not enough of that. And I went on this, race to uncover what micro thing I was missing, and with the hope that if I supply my body with it, it's going to, all the pain is going to go away. And of course, it wasn't this simple, because that wasn't the reason. The reason was emotional. The reason was psychological. And learning the ability to process these things. So I've tried it all. And the conclusion I came to that, yes, sometimes it did help when I would eat in a certain way. There's certainly a diet that's I know is better for me because of my genetics. I'm Northern European, so certain foods work better for me, local foods that my ancestors ate. My body resonates with it more. Having gone vegan didn't quite work for me, unfortunately, even though I wish it did, because it's, I don't like to eat animals, but Anyway, this is a whole other tangent. We don't need to go there. But yeah, there is a certain diet that works better for me. But again, that does not, turns out, cause my migraines. It didn't cause my pain when I veered off in a different direction. Because what I've discovered is that when later, further down the road, I would eat unhealthy, I didn't have any pain. Whereas when I was very uptight and tense about my diet, I would be in pain. So now what I do, because I still like to eat healthy and I still like to supplement, especially my two favorite supplements are B complex and magnesium, because my nervous system has a tendency of quick activation. So it uses up a lot of B vitamins. It uses up a lot of magnesium. So I take it as a supplement, but I don't do it to end the pain. And here the mindset is important. I do it to just, in general, supply my body with the material that it needs to function properly. So a little bit of a shift in the mindset, again, brings you back to the real cause of the pain, which is it's emotional, it's mental, right? It's some thought, it's some feeling, something that's eating at us that we maybe haven't processed yet. And we don't even need to know precisely what that is that's eating us. I'm a very curious person, so I needed to get down to the core. But a lot of people didn't need to. They didn't need to go do psychotherapy. They didn't need to go in and dig in. Some people it works. For other people, it's enough to just know that that's what it is for the symptoms to lift. So the first thing, making my health not about eliminating pain, but rather making it about overall health. So let's not get caught up in the diet and the restrictions, because that can bring on more tension. Second thing is not fearing movement. So when my symptoms were the most acute, and that was towards the second half of 2019 and a little bit during the first half of 2020, when I finally had a breakthrough. My doctors, I'm talking about conventional doctors, neurologists specifically, told me to be careful with movement. Whereas my physiotherapist told me to start to move, but just go slow. So I weighed the two opinions, and I noticed that if I wasn't moving at all, and for me movement has been very important in my life because it helps me to actually get some tension out. Whereas the other person was telling me, go do it, which when I was moving, I was feeling pain, I was getting more pain, because I noticed that when I had lactic acid in my body from working out, my migraines went up. I needed to find a balance, strike a balance. So I just experimented. But what I found is that movement was actually good, and I began to push it incrementally to do more and more and more, while again telling my body I was safe, everything was going to be okay, and not creating this claustrophobic world around myself. So I wouldn't recommend going completely, no movement and staying in bed, which is what the brain wants us to do. Unfortunately, it's kind of misadapted in this case. So we need to break the cycle and begin to move and start slow, find your comfort zone, and then maybe come out a little bit every day. Steve Ozanich, who was my coach for a period of time, he wrote a great book called Great Pain Deception. We've had some really cool conversations. What he did is he actually, in the midst of his worst pain, he would go running every single day, ignoring his symptoms, communicating to his brain, to his body, that what he refused to believe that there was anything wrong with his body. He knew it was his brain, and finally the brain got tired of trying to convince him and let go. Again, I don't recommend you doing what Steve did. That was his path, that worked for him, but just don't fear it. Consider doing something. If it brings you joy, taking a walk, go take a walk, even if it's going to hurt a little bit, because if you know that it's not physiological, then the pain eventually will go. It will alleviate. It will go away. Number 3, meditation. Specific meditation to break up the thought cycles that were feeding the fear in my body, in my emotions, that were then causing pain. So that was sort of the chain reaction, the train of thought, emotion, physiological symptoms that I've discovered. So it did originate with a thought. Not everything originated with the thoughts. Some emotions were just left over from past traumas that I just wasn't able to process because I didn't have the tools or the time or the knowledge. So the thought, whatever it was, I just eliminated it, right? I began to do long meditations, 20 minutes, 3 times a day for 1 month. And that really did some good stuff for me, because I noticed that with an empty mind, there was just, the pain was very, very low, if there was any at all. So there was an absolute relationship between the thought and the symptom. In my case, the thoughts were that I've eventually identified were self-sabotaging, and they were quite subconscious. They were sort of deeply buried. So it took me some time before they finally came out to the surface, and I recognized them. And it was sort of obvious when it came up. These were fears that were connected with my future. These were judgments that were connected with me not being perfect enough, not doing things the right way. These were regrets from the past, where I felt like I didn't make the right choices, which of course was not true, because we always make the best choices we can, given the knowledge and the tools we have. So I stopped those thoughts in their tracks. They sort of fell apart. And with that, I started to feel much better. So the kind of meditation I did was just breath, inhale, inhale, exhale. When a thought would come in, I would just name it, identify it, and let it go. But many different types of meditations can be helpful here, including visualization meditations, going into some safe place in nature. So whatever works for you, do it. But breaking up this frantic mind thinking activity really does help. This seems to help. Number 4, resting the body and the brain and the nervous system. So this really comes down to regulating my sleep. And I tend to be a night owl, so that wasn't easy. It still isn't easy. I love staying up late when everybody else is sleeping, because I just feel this nice space to do my creative work. But unfortunately, that wasn't working for me. So I needed to find a way to strike some balance. And so getting enough sleep is essential. You know, even if you need to sleep in, even if you need to call to work late, if you do get that sleep, that can be really helpful. And don't be surprised even if you get a lot of sleep, the pain still doesn't go away for some time, because it just takes time for these things to wind down. It's kind of like, you know, when a fan is running, you may take it out of the plug, but it's still going to run for some time on its own, just from its momentum, before it comes down to a full stop. So don't lose hope. Be patient and keep doing the things that you know are good and healthy for you. Number 5, this is a tough one, but it's really helpful, is ignoring your symptoms as much as possible. Rather than to allow them to take all of your attention and generate fear, you just go, okay, oh well, I'm hurting today. Okay, well, hopefully it will get better, you know, and just do your thing. Do the thing that you need to do. Keep moving forward in your life. Maybe it's a little slower than you would like, but you know you're still taking steps forward. But that also, again, communicates to your brain and to your nervous system that the pain is not caused by anything other than the brain, and the brain is freaking out and it's overreacting and it needs to stop. So eventually the message will get there and it will stop. And number 6, also a tough one. It can be a tough one because subconsciously, again, we may not see this plainly, but there is a tendency to see the future in really dark colors. And I want to really caution you against that. While you're doing your meditations, also you can tag to the end, even like a spontaneous minute here and there, to just imagine yourself pain-free. Imagine yourself doing the things you want to do. Imagine yourself living a happy, joyful life. There will be stress. There always will be stress. This is just part of living. But that doesn't mean that the stress has to take away your joy, and stress has to cause pain. Stress is just part of fluctuations. You can still be happy. You can still be joyful. You can still be calm, because it really comes down to how your nervous system reacts to the things that happen to you, rather than the things that happen to you, right? You've heard this often. It's not about what happens, it's about what you would do with it. So the more regulated and calm your nervous system becomes, the better you will be able to deal with all the other things that happen to you. So that's it for me for today, for you. From me to you. thank you for being on this channel. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your likes. Thank you for your support. Thank you for sending my videos to the people who need it. I really look forward to your messages under this video. I want to talk more about this. I think this is a really important topic. I have loads of knowledge to share with you, but like I said, I need to pace myself because I can't do it all at once. So send me your questions. Let me know what specifically you would like me to talk about, and I will read them. I will make notes, and slowly but surely I will be releasing this information. Also, if you'd like to have a coaching session with me, I am now open to taking new clients after having taken a little bit of a break from coaching, or having slowed it down, may I say. I'm ready to take in more clients. So if you're interested, whether it's about nervous system recovery, which I can now add a little bit more of that into my coaching, or whether it deals with specifically coming out of narcissistic relationships, I am here to help you. So thank you so much. I'm sending you lots of blessings, and I see you next time. Bye-bye.